Everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Go Blue. There we go. Always gets attention. Welcome, everyone. My name is Wendy Carell. I'm the Senior Director of Alumni Engagement here at the Ross School of Business. It's my pleasure to welcome you all this evening, along with our guests who are viewing live stream. We're excited to be here tonight. This is the 8th of 22 RossTalks we're hosting this year, calendar year or academic year, but the first domestic one we've hosted this year. So we've been international twice. And it's nice to be at home and to be able to share our conversation with our alumni locally and those around the world. So thank you so much. This evening, we've got a few staff in the room. So for those of you who are here, I want to make sure that my fellow colleagues from the Ross School of Business raise their hand and are acknowledged. We've got representatives from the Sanger Leadership Center, the Action-Based Learning Office, Development and Alumni Relations. We've got Executive Education. We have Marketing and Communications all over the place. So we're really excited to have them here. Please be sure when we're done in networking again, if you have questions for any of them, that you seek them out. MBA admissions is here as well. I saw, there's Diana. And we've got some prospective students here and admitted students along with our alumni. So thank you all so much for coming. We've got a great conversation for all of you this evening. I want to welcome you all and to share with you we are hosting tonight's conversation about the living business model that's been talked about by the Dean for about a year and a half. We're going to go into some conversation about that. Right now, I'd like to introduce you to Paul Buckwald. Paul is a 2011 MBA alum, and Paul is the co-president of the Southeast Michigan Alumni Club of Ross Alumni Relations here, and I'd like to have Paul come up and welcome you.
We had a really amazing event at M-City, which is the school's autonomous vehicle test center. If any of you ever get a chance to go to a tour there, I would highly recommend it. And then finally, we had a community service event here as well at Food Gatherers in Ann Arbor. We are in the process of planning our calendar for this year. We're actually all getting together as a board in a couple weeks to lay it out. We do have a few events I did want to plug while I have all of your attention. On March 6th, we're having our, what used to be holiday party, but since we pushed it to March, we're calling it our winter party out in Birmingham. We're having an event at Gleaners Food Bank in Pontiac on June 2nd that was just booked today. And then we are in the process of finalizing an event here in Ann Arbor in March where it'll be a happy hour, and we're having one of our fellow alums come and talk about the intersection of politics and business. Now on to the more pressing business. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dean Scott DeRue, the Edward J. Fry Dean of the Stephen M. Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. And I think we've already, Dean DeRue has been Dean now for a little over a year. And I think we're already starting to see some of the positive impacts of his leadership. One of the ways I think that's really started to show is the impact that the Dean and his staff and Wendy have really put on alumni engagement. And that's shown through a couple of ways. One is the added focus the school now puts on career development and advice for alumni. So not just supporting people getting their first job, but supporting you throughout your career. And for those that are interested in learning more about that, I would highly suggest reaching out to Wendy or Angie Blunden, who helps helping lead some of those efforts. Additionally, the school has also put an added focus on providing volunteer opportunities to support the school for alumni. And that's something that Caitlin Johnson has really been helping to lead. And then finally, one of the last things I wanted to mention, which we're going to hear a lot more about tonight, is the deans put a tremendous focus on looking for ways to be truly innovative in the way we lead business education. And like I said, we should hear a lot more about that on the panel tonight. Prior to his role as dean, Scott was the associate dean for the executive education program. He was a professor of management where half of my classmates were lucky to have him as part of the core cohort. I had a great professor that was not Dean DeRue. And he was also the director of the Sanger Leadership Center. He is an award-winning professor and lecturer and researcher who's had tremendous experience focusing on business education and action-based leadership. Dean DeRue understands that business plays an integral role in having a positive impact on social impact and economics, and he understands that we, as a school, are really going to shape the future business leaders of this country. And with that, please join me in welcoming Dean Scott DeRue.
Thank you, Paul. World Online, welcome as well. It's a thrill to have you here. And when I became dean 18 months ago, time flies, it's actually been almost 18 months, our team committed to a vision that we strongly believed and still believe today that would redefine the standard of business education, really focusing on reinventing the student experience with a mind towards and an eye towards how do we best prepare our students not only for the jobs of tomorrow, but the careers beyond that, right? How do we best create a student experience that's going to prepare our students for the jobs of today and the careers of tomorrow? That's really where we started, okay? And what that led to was a vision, an emphasis where we want every student who walks through our doors to have the opportunity to start real businesses, right? To get an experience as an entrepreneur. We want every student who walks through our doors to have an opportunity to actually run an investment fund. Not with play money, but with actual capital where they're investing in assets, whether it's real estate, venture capital. We even now have a cryptocurrency trading fund. Not sure how that's going to turn out, given the RossTalks we did recently with our friend Charlie Munger in Los Angeles. He had some things to say about the future of that cryptocurrency fund, but we're trying it anyways. All right? And so we've got every student having the opportunity to start real businesses, to run investment funds. We want every student to have the opportunity to actually consult and advise real companies on issues of real strategic importance. So in our full-time MBA program, we've got some prospective students here tonight. We last week unveiled the MAP projects. These are our consulting projects where for 2 months our MBAs work full-time around the world with leading brands, leading companies, advising them on these strategic issues. 84 projects this year, 72 different companies, 22 countries and 98 different cities. For 2 months, our students will be working with these companies all around the world, advising them on these issues of real strategic importance. Faculty on each team helping our students learn as they advise and consult these businesses. And then lastly, so we've got startups, we've got investing, we've got consulting and advising. We had this vision, and I remember being here last year and talking with some of you at a RossTalks, and we had this crazy idea. We were going to start building businesses inside the business school, where our students, in partnership with these leading brands and companies, are actually managing, in teams, managing real business functions inside these businesses. Not as an internship, not as a job post-graduation, yes, do that too, but as a core part of your educational experience, where you're actually learning how to develop marketing strategies as you develop and implement the marketing strategy in a real company. or same thing for supply chain or digital or whatever the case may be. And so we call these living businesses. This was the vision that we set out when we started 18 months ago. And what's going to be fun in our conversation tonight is you're going to get to see that come to life. So since 2012, our students have started 172 different companies. Roughly about $100 million of follow-on funding and venture funding coming to those companies. Okay? From an investment perspective, we've got roughly about, depending on how you count, roughly about $15 million under management across real estate, venture capital, et cetera, that our students are running real investment funds. Right? Consulting, we've got the MBA MAP projects, but we'll do as a school over 180 consulting projects this year alone. Okay? And then last year when I was here, we were talking about these living businesses. And when I was here, we had 0. And I said, we're going to have a dozen in 2 years. We now have 7. In 18 months, we've got 7, and we're on pace to have a dozen of these in 2 years. Very exciting. When you combine that student experience, where we are building the most hands-on, real-world business education on the planet, bar none. When you combine that with world-class faculty, this year our faculty will probably rank globally 5th or 6th in research productivity. Okay? Along with being, depending on the quarter, 3rd, 4th, or 5th globally among any business school in having our thought leadership in the media. Right? So we're doing world-class research, and we're having those ideas actually get into the world and influence how people think about business. Okay? Student experience, faculty, then you look at, put that together, and our students are having amazing learning experiences that are translating into career opportunities that are second to none. If you look at the career placement of our students, whether you want to look at placement stats or salary or the types of companies that students want to work at, for example, full-time MBAs, if you look at the top 10 companies that MBAs want to work at, we will place students this year at all of them in mass. If you look at the top 20 companies that MBA students want to work at, this year we'll place students into 19 of those 20. Right? It's amazing what's happening at the school. Okay? And that's having really significant positive implications for brand and reputation, and we're seeing the consequences of that. The Financial Times recently put out a ranking where, and there's lots of different rankings, all kinds of different methods. The Financial Times recently put out one where they looked at our MBA program, our executive MBA program, and our executive education, and what we do for companies. We ranked 5th among all U.S. business schools when you put those together. Right? And so we're building and elevating the brand that then has positive consequences for everybody in this room and everybody online. Okay? You put all that together, and we've got a lot of positive momentum that we're really excited about. We're really excited about. Okay? And what's really neat to see is tonight, the conversation that we want to have is going to bring that to life for you. And so it's an honor to have you all here because we're going to get to share both from a student perspective, an executive company perspective, and a faculty perspective, what we're doing with these living businesses. There's no business school on the planet that's attempting this. You know you're onto something, and this was true when we launched MAP, now decades ago. When we launched MAP in 1991, okay, the consulting projects that we do, business schools, and this is on record, business schools are saying you'll never be able to scale that. You'll never be able to figure out how to scale that. And now we do over 180 of them a year. Okay? I knew I was onto something with these living businesses when we said, hey, we're going to try this, and everybody says, that won't work. You won't be able to scale it. It would be hugely transformative, but you'll never get the companies to do it. You can't get, you're onto something. And you're going to see that coming to life. We've got now companies on the West Coast that our students are running. We've got them here in Detroit. We've got them all over the place. Very exciting things happening here at the school. And it's my distinct pleasure to bring our 3 panelists. And so we're going to have a conversation tonight, share with you some of the experiences we're having around these living businesses. And then we'll open it up to questions. So our team will have note cards, and they will be passing out those note cards. And if you have questions, just write them down on the note card, and our team will bring those to me, and we'll make sure your questions get embedded in the conversation. Is that fair? Okay. And so it's, again, my distinct pleasure and honor to have our three panelists with us this evening. And so I'll go from my right to my left, if that's okay. So Kiva, who is with us tonight, is a BBA undergraduate senior, okay, who is going to be going and working for Google in a few months in their AdWords business, which is actually based here in Ann Arbor and is run by Mary Ellen Coe, one of our alumni as well. And she's going to go work in that business and is going to do amazing things, but has been a rock star in our undergraduate program in her 4 years here. So Kiva, would you like to come to stage? From DC, now in Ann Arbor. Next, we have Tom Lewand. Tom is a graduate of our MBA program, went on from our MBA program and was the general manager for the Detroit Lions, and decided to give up that whole football thing and move over, and now is the CEO of Shinola. How many of you have heard of Shinola? Tom, you have fans, right? And you can't see all the people online, but they're raising their hands as well and showing you their watch and their leather goods. So Shinola is one of the, if you don't know, is one of the fastest growing luxury retail brands in the U.S. I go to cities all around the U.S. and I find the Shinola stores everywhere now. Okay? Tom was our first partner in this adventure that we've been on with these living businesses. Tom Lewand, would you like to come up to the stage,
Thanks,
please?
Scott. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
And last but certainly not least is my good friend Mike Barger, who about a year ago joined my team. So Mike was one of the co-founders of JetBlue, and then went on and got a doctorate at Penn in learning because he got interested in education. And went on from there and built an ed tech company. And that's where I first met Mike, and we had the opportunity to get to know each other, and somehow I convinced him, hey, come over here and help me build these living businesses, and let's transform business education, and let's actually create an experience that transforms people's lives. And so Mike's been on our team for a year. He's actually the faculty that's teaching this living business, and is on my dean's team helping us build this from scratch in startup mode, and now it's coming to life. So Mike, please join us on stage. So I'm going to host a conversation. Again, they'll be passing out note cards for all of you to submit questions. But let me begin. So Mike, so as I said, we started this from nothing, right? It was from scratch, and we set a goal when you came in. I remember our first conversation, and I said, Mike, I want a dozen of these things in 2 years. You think that's possible? And you said without hesitation, yes. I'm not sure you knew how we were going to do it yet, but we are now well on our way. And to scaling this and really transform, I really think this is the future of business education. So my question to you is, we know where we are today. Where is this 3-5 years from now? What do you think is possible with these living businesses in the broader context of business education?
Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So as you would expect, starting out something new like this, you'd want to start it with as little risk as possible. So as we thought about what kinds of businesses, what kinds of partners can we partner up with to make this work, to try this experiment, we found a group of friends of Ross who were willing to kind of partner up and share the risk. So folks like Tom, when the dean and I sat down and talked to Tom about this concept, we were very transparent about the fact that this might not work. This is certainly taking some risk on your part. We're going to try something that's never been done like this at business school ever. So let's work on it together and see if we can make it work. So this first collection of businesses, we started 4 of them in the fall semester, were all very much due to our pretty tight connections with folks that were friends of Ross. So we did not for enough time at all think about how do we integrate these businesses with the kinds of things that our students come here to learn how to do. The companies that are spending most of their time and energy recruiting our students. We haven't really plugged all of those things together. So what I expect to see in the next 3 years or so is a collection of 12 to 15 or so of these businesses in the kinds of sectors that our incoming students are telling us that they want to be a part of, with the companies that are coming here and hiring 20, 30, 40 students from our MBA class and 30, 40, 50 students from our BBA class. that's when we know we've really created something that not only can scale, but that totally aligns with the needs of our incoming students, with our primary recruiting companies that want to leverage our talent, and with our alumni that kind of look back onto events like this and get really excited about the kinds of things that we're doing to completely transform education. With that, is that too long?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Good. Absolutely. You got me excited. So Tom, let me come to you next, because Tom's on the Ross School Advisory Board, which is my senior advisory board that helps think about strategy and where we're going and so forth. And we were at an advisory board meeting, I think, and we had this idea. And I said to Tom, Tom, I imagine a world where we actually start building businesses in the business school in partnership with companies where our students actually run the business. What do you think? And he said, forget what I think, let's do it. So he was our first partner. Can you talk a little bit about just why you wanted to do this? And from Shinola's experience, what's it been like?
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think from, Mike started talking about it in his answer about what this could scale to, but obviously it needs to start somewhere. And I think even when it scales, there's probably different experiences. And the Shinola experience, that I'll explain in a second, I think is always going to be an important part of this component. Because really what we are, and Scott said it in the introduction, but we're a multi-category, we call affordable or approachable luxury brand. We started with watches, we've gone into leather goods, into audio, which is where the living business model comes into play, as well as some other things that we've explored. And when people ask us who our competitors are or who we aspire to compete with, there really isn't a portfolio like that. So as we look at going into categories or different channels, and especially in a disrupted industry like retail is right now, we look for all the talent we can get. And we're still we're about 4.5 years old in the sales cycle. So we're very much in startup mode. So being able to draw on the expertise, the talent, the resources that somebody like Ross has, and come and help us diagnose and solve problems immediately. And then beyond that, to be able to get to know folks like Kiva, who's going to get down bright and early tomorrow in Detroit at 10 a.m., as she said to me earlier. But they actually come and work in our offices on challenges that we're facing or that we want to explore. And that gives them an opportunity to learn about us. It gives them an opportunity to develop their talent. But importantly for us, it gives us a chance to learn about them. And so when we look at where we're hiring and what our talent pool looks like, it's inherent that they're there. Not only is it, if you want to call it an extended interview, but it's way beyond that. These are folks that have contributed in meaningful ways in disciplines that we don't have. As Kiva's working for Google, she's on our finance team, but we have folks who are going to work for Google who are helping us, not just in our audio world on e-commerce, but our global platform for our e-commerce. And that's extremely valuable to us in the near term, but infinitely more valuable to us in the long term as we look to recruit that talent to come to Shinola as we grow.
Yeah, that's neat. When we first started talking, I remember that I said, Tom, this may not work, right? I mean, businesses don't always succeed. And you said to me, oh, that's fine, because I'm going to find the person that'll run my next business.
That's right. Absolutely. And the funny thing is, as most of you know, and certainly everybody watching online, you're right, businesses don't work. Forget this experiment about transforming business education. Businesses don't work. And as a microcosm of that, I think the first time we talked, we said, we might go into the luggage business. So let's start looking at that. And then it became, there's an opportunity in men's shaving. The shave club space is really exciting. And now we're in audio. So we have run the gamut in a very short period of time.
Yeah, they're adjacent categories.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You always want to listen to music while you shave, and then when you're getting on the road, you got to have your suitcase. There you go.
No, that's great. Kiva, I'm so excited you're here because you're able to provide the first-hand student experience, and you have been a rock star at Ross in your entire time here, and you went on this adventure with us as well. And so can you talk a little bit about, first, why you wanted to get involved in this from a student perspective? And just to be clear to all, we have undergraduates and MBAs working together on these teams. And so can you talk a little bit about why you wanted to do this and what your experience has been like, what you've gotten out of it, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to be on it because I was jealous of MAP, and BBAs don't have an experience like that. So I was seeking something similar. I wanted a real business experience, not just an internship, but I wanted to do something here at Ross. So when I found the opportunity to apply, and especially since there's all these different functional teams, so we have e-commerce, supply chain, marketing, and finance, I thought it'd be a really good opportunity for me to apply the things I've learned throughout my time here at Ross. So that's sort of why I wanted to get into it, especially since I'm going into Google. I wanted to just work for a company that has similar culture and that I think there's a lot of parallels. So that's why I wanted to get into it. My experience has been amazing. So this is my second semester. I'm actually my team lead now, so I'm telling 30-year-old MBAs what to do, and it's pretty exciting. But we have basically been working on the audio category. So if you haven't checked out Shinola's headphones, you definitely should. They're an amazing product. And this semester, we're really focusing on wireless headphones. So we've been doing digital customer acquisition strategies. We've been looking at playing around with different price points. And if you guys don't believe that we actually make change, we help set the price point for the headphones. So I think we actually are listened to and they take our advice. And I think there's a really, really great relationship that we've established. And especially we've made changes since last semester. So a big change is that we go down much more frequently, which I think is really great to have that cadence and actually feel as a part of the team. So it's been an awesome experience and a great complement to all the other amazing things I've done here at Ross.
That's great. What's the thing that you've learned the most? Like, what stands out as the aha for you so the idea here is you can do it multiple times, and you didn't start out as the team lead for your function. You were in that and then essentially got promoted like you would in a real organization at some level. And so what's been the aha for you?
So when I went into this, and actually I remember in my interview with Mayuri, she's here today, we were talking about how I felt like I would have so much that I could learn from MBAs, and I was just like so in awe to be working with them. And something that she said to me in the interview was actually, well, they probably have a lot they can learn from you too. And I was kind of like, yeah, like that's probably also true. So I think like the most rewarding thing has actually been the dynamics of the team, and really, I think my leadership skills have really, really flourished during this, and I think I'm learning so much just about working with a diverse team and how we sort of manage the distance, and I think that's something that I haven't gotten that quite in Ross. I think we do a ton of group projects, but BBAs, we're all pretty similar, so working on this team with 30-year-olds, 22-year-olds, we have different backgrounds. Some people have been in the industry for 10 years. It's been really interesting. That's neat.
So not to disappoint you, maybe to excite you, we now do have MAP in the undergraduate program. Wow. So we just started that, actually.
But you can't leave the LBLE to go do that.
Yeah. Mike and Tom, actually, I'd love to get both of your perspectives on this question. So you hear Kiva talk about her aha and the lessons that she's learning around collaboration and teamwork and leadership skills and so forth. And I said in the introductory comments about how we're really creating this as a way to not only prepare students for the jobs of today, but also the careers of tomorrow, and what's going to be required of our students to thrive in the future. When you hear her talk about the lessons she's learning, the experience she's having, how do you think this living business experience and these portfolio companies we're building, how do you think that could prepare our students for those future jobs and careers? And what do you think the potential is there?
Well, I can tell you exactly from a firsthand experience a couple of different things. One is, having been here, as you mentioned earlier, Scott, I got my MBA and my law degree and my undergrad all from Michigan. So somewhere there's a building named after me because I think I'm still paying my student loans off. But the idea of working in group projects, as Kiva was talking about earlier, that is inherently part of the business experience, is still done in a sterile environment. It's still a group project that is done in a meeting room downstairs or a classroom somewhere else or somebody's apartment or dorm room. In this case, you're solving real world problems with people who are being paid and held accountable to do it, and you're part of a larger team. And in a lot of cases, the second thing I would say is you're doing it cross-functionally. So somebody like Kiva who's going to work at Google is on our finance team, and she's learning. So, and we see that across the board. People who are maybe have a background or MBAs who worked in a certain industry are applying themselves somewhere else. So you're getting that cross-functional training, and you're doing it in an inherently uncertain and messy environment. You're not solving a case. There is no answer to this. You're to use an analogy from Mike's past world. You're building the plane as you're flying it, and those skills that you develop as part of that prepare you for whatever the future looks like. It prepares you, I think, even better than any other business education can for the task at hand, but it certainly puts you in a position of being comfortable with the uncomfort of the future.
Excellent. So what the dean didn't tell you about my prior lives, in addition to the JetBlue time, is when I left Michigan as a graduate in the mid-'80s, I went and was a fighter pilot in the Navy for 13 years. I ran the Top Gun school. It's nothing like the movie, but it's a pretty cool place. And I hear they're making another movie, which really concerns me. But anyway, but that whole course was ultimately a course about how to operate effectively in a complex and volatile and uncertain and ambiguous environment. So it's not teaching students, just like LBLE isn't teaching students, this is the playbook, go out and execute the playbook. What it is it's an experience in that dealing with that volatility and that uncertainty and that ambiguity, and how do we as a team figure out how to kind of pave the right path forward, like Tom was saying. That's the kind of skill that's going to take our grads to be able to go into a new environment and figure out the best path forward. So I don't think it's tied at all to the things that are happening today. It's tied to a capability to deal with the things that we couldn't even imagine today.
Yeah, both great points. We do a lot of work with the companies that we engage with around the globe that recruit our students and are looking for talent and so forth. And we always ask them, what are you looking for? Not only tomorrow, but in the future. And what you all are describing is exactly what they're looking for, right? It's not, I want somebody who understands a particular business discipline, whether it's finance or accounting. They generally assume you know those things, right? What they're looking for are people who can build and lead teams, people who can thrive in the context of ambiguity and complexity and be able to make sense of that and get to decisions and bring people along with those decisions. And so it's these, I started tonight by saying these are the types of experiences we want to build to prepare those students for the future. And that's informed by the perspective of what these companies are looking for, what they think they're going to need as well.
Well, Scott, if I could draw a parallel a little bit, I mentioned that I also got my law degree from here. And if you think about what I learned in law school and what most law students learn, it's not necessarily civil procedure or criminal law or constitutional law. It's through the Socratic method, learning how to think like an attorney, learning how to advocate for both sides, learning how to adapt on your feet, all of the skills that you need to successfully perform in a legal environment. And that's really what this is all about. It's transforming business education into what is like the Socratic method for law. How do you think? How do you adapt? How do you work for a team? How do you solve problems in a real world practical environment? Because as Scott said, we're going to assume you know finance or marketing or whatever your discipline is, just like we're going to assume as a lawyer you learned civil procedure, criminal law. So that I think in a lot of ways it is that transformative for business education.
And on that topic, so far my favorite moment in the 5 months. So you've heard a lot of, boy, this is going really well, and we've built a lot of companies. Well, 5 months, right? So we've been in this time. So my favorite moment so far is about the start of the second week in the fall semester, and you can validate this for me, Kiva. We got the whole class together Tuesday morning, 8:30, so lots of students in their jammies because it's really early. And pretty much universally across the class, we hate it. It's confusing. We met with our sponsors. It's not clear they know what they want to do. No one seems to be talking to anybody else. It's not really clear where the data are and how we're going to get them. And with the really fighting back the big smile on my face to not say anything wrong, it was welcome to business. That's what business is. It's okay. And by the end of the third week, that was the face that everybody had. As oh. we get it. So it was really a wonderful moment of, okay, don't drop the class. Stay with the class. Give me another week. And it's, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the coolest things about it is, you know, we do a lot of like Harvard Business School cases in our strategy classes, and the reality is that a case is not changing, right? It's happened in the past, and there's a right answer to the question, and this is living business. Things are constantly changing, so we actually like rebranded our team recently and also completely changed projects. So I think it's a really good lesson that we can't necessarily get with some of the traditional methods. And
I'll tell you that just along those same lines, one of the most rewarding things for me in this was seeing the number of students that were involved. We started with a map project to get this going, actually when it was the Shave Club, and I wasn't kidding about that. And some of those folks, almost all of them signed up for Mike's LBLE class, and then most of them came for the second semester. And that was a smile on my face when I saw all those students from the first semester sign up for the second semester. That really, because they're building it with us. It's not just their experience. They're helping us define not only the outputs at Shinola and functioning essentially as our teammates and staff, but they're helping us define what that looks like. And that is also very meaningful as an alumni, that I'm watching students impact not only the education, but what's going to happen for students that come after them.
Yeah. Well, and the beauty of that is, so the concept is these businesses are ongoing, right? And the students they can engage over multiple semesters, but the business is ongoing. Students are going to graduate, new students are going to come into the business, right? And if my understanding is correct, you were drawing up full-time offer letters within a couple of months for students. And you're not the only business in our portfolio that was doing that. And so that's also exciting, because when we think about the network of companies that engage with us and recruit our talent and things of that sort, this is a new channel, if you will, for how we can really connect and engage with companies and add real business value in real time, as helping you build an audio business in this case, at the same time helping you attract and recruit and hire top talent.
Absolutely. As we think about it, if we could continue to use LBLE as a weapon for the growth of our business, being able to hire talent from within that program not only gives us talent, but also then provides that connective tissue to the next semester and the next semester, so that and having somebody who not just was on the project team, but also understands what it can do and what its limitations are, right? Because we don't want to present all sunshine and roses. This is still, there is some disconnect. The students have other classes, they have other obligations, they have other desires. So it is about trying to figure out the right blend of how they can provide value to us, how we can provide value to them, but also allow the rich experience of the rest of the education to happen.
Yeah. So I know there's some questions that are being submitted right now, so the folks are running around. If you have note cards, please hand it to them. Mike, can you talk a little bit about how the portfolio has grown from Shinola to who's in the portfolio today, and can you give us some examples of the businesses that you're excited about?
Sure. So real quickly, we've got the Shinola audio business. We've got NRP Group, which is building an affordable housing, an approach to affordable housing that's kind of started as a real estate project, but really it's evolved into how do we build affordable housing communities that bring together local capital, local real estate, and local social services, because that's what you really need in an affordable housing community, so that people don't just have a place to live, but they've actually got a path to get out of needing affordable housing, which is one of the projects. We've got a company that's being built with Ford Smart Mobility around an aspect of the autonomous vehicle value chain. That's all I'll tell you about that, but it's really exciting for those teams. Working with real kind of developers and engineers at Ford to develop real prototypes. So here in the second semester, we hope to see some real prototypes, which is pretty cool. We've got a company that's creating education for entrepreneurs in developing countries. So they're going around the world to help startups in these underdeveloped countries, just to kind of develop some business capability there. In the winter term, we've got a project in digital media that's going to help us get some of our thought leadership and ideas that the Dean was talking about earlier that come from Ross and Michigan out to our over 500,000 alumni out around the world, which is a pretty cool project. We've got a project around finding employment and development and employment for survivors of human trafficking, which is a project that Ross is doing with the team from the law school. That's a pretty cool project. We've got a project that we're building with one of the original engineers of Google Maps, who has now developed a mechanism for creating personalized developmental paths through whatever kind of education pathway you're looking for. So we're going to apply that in the Ross context. So every Ross student, undergrad or grad, will be able to tell this platform, here's where I am, here's where I want to go, tell me all of the curricular, so the classes, all of the extracurricular things I should be doing, all the co-curricular things, the clubs and the challenges and all the things that are available here, which are in the thousands, right? Trying to manage that is really hard. So this business is actually going to create this engine, and it's something that actually we think once we create it that other people are going to want. So that's where we're starting. And so over the next couple of years, it's going to be really exciting to see what kinds of things do incoming students want, what kind of things do employers want to see from our students. It's pretty cool. Time's good.
Thanks, Mike. So I've got a number of questions here from the audience. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but there are a couple that I really want to get to. And this question, I would love for both Tom and Kiva to chime in on this question. So the note card says, all very exciting. How does the company guard against a possible negative cultural impact? For example, the current employees, current managers feeling possibly slighted. Mm-hmm. And so I'd be interested both from the company perspective and also how you, Kiva, thought about managing that as you enter and in some sense exit a company and their culture. Could you both speak to that?
I'll let you start.
Yeah, so I think one thing I'll say about Shinola is they have been so welcoming to us. I think when I went into the experience, I wasn't actually expecting such like welcoming faces. The fact that Tom even knows who I am is pretty crazy. And so that's one thing I'll say. And there's never been a piece of information that I've asked for that I haven't been given access to. So there's been a very fluid relationship, which I think is really great. Something that we've sort of changed from last semester, as I mentioned, we're going much more frequently, and we've established sort of point of contacts that are just much more regular. So I think last semester, something we just kind of struggled with was, since we weren't there and weren't going as much, there was just a bit of a disconnect. You know, things change week to week at a company, and so we'd hear about that change a week later and be like, okay, well, I wish we'd known about this. But now the fact that we're going so much, so often has really helped with that. So I don't think the viewpoint is that we're stealing work or taking away. I think they really appreciate us having there, and we provide just a different perspective. And there's been so many times where a question has come up and I've been like, oh, I think I actually just talked about that in a class like 2 days ago, and that's something that most people working don't have as often. So I think it's a really unique relationship, and I think we bring something good to the table.
Yeah, and it is, from our standpoint, I would echo what Kiva says. It's a credit to our team and my colleagues that they've embraced the opportunity. And it was a bit of a trust on their part that we were getting into something that would provide value to them as professionals. And I can tell you, honestly, the first time I sat down with our team to explain this as best I could as we were building it as we went, the first reaction was, okay, what, I've got a bunch of students coming down here, and what do I have to do with them? Is it a glorified babysitting thing? What am I doing here? And it pretty quickly turned, right after they met the students and understood what value they could bring, to, oh my gosh, this is a real resource for us. And as much as Kiva was saying that the students had some frustration at that disconnect by checking in every week, our team was feeling the same thing, saying, is there any way we can get them down here more frequently? Is there any way we can essentially make them part of our team in a more integrated way? So the evolution culturally was not very difficult at all once you got past that initial threshold of of kind of what is this we're getting into.
That's neat. And so, question, Mike, you could take this one, Tom, you could as well, and Kiva, you're going to want to listen. So the question is what early mistakes in your career could you have avoided by having this experience in these living businesses?
Okay. I'll give you the one that comes up most often from students. So at the end of the course, they write a 10-page, essentially an organized reflection summary. And so during the course, we have them on a regular basis, at least once a week. They're thinking back on the things that happened this week and what are the lessons that I take away. And in every single one of the 48 of these 10-page things that I read over the Christmas holiday, there was a situation where we had asked for some data or had asked for some help from someone, and they hadn't delivered the data or the help, and so we just kind of waited. And we waited, and we waited, and after a couple of weeks, it became really clear that we just can't wait. We need to go and knock on a door and tell them we need this. And as commonsensical as that sound, having spent a lot of time in the business world, Tom too, is that if we could just solve that, where, hey, you told me tomorrow by the end of the day you were going to have the data for me and you didn't get it to me, so now I'm going to follow up and see where it is. I don't know. I think we'd get 100% increase in productivity around the country. There's a lot of that.
It is true. And I would say even similar, looking at the other end, if I think of coming out of Ross and going to, as Scott said before, the Detroit Lions, where I started my career, and I'm embarrassed to say one of the first map projects, as you said, started decades ago, but coming out of one of those and starting with the Detroit Lions, a lot of what I wish I would have known back then was how to really work cross-functionally with a team and be able to make mistakes together. You know, I felt when I was starting my career, and I was looking at a project at the time where we were thinking about building a new stadium in downtown Detroit, 1995. And I felt like this is something I had to analyze. I had to go stick myself in front of my computer screen in a spreadsheet and analyze it to the best of my ability. And I wasn't comfortable enough to go to everybody else and make a mistake and have my fallibility come to the forefront, where I think the students now know that not only can they feel comfortable, but they're seeing it amongst our colleagues at Shinola. We don't always have the answer. We're not always looking to get a grade. We're just looking to figure out the best way to solve the challenge.
Thank you. So Kiva, I'm going to test your political skill. So Kiva has aspirations to go into politics, and so this is your first test. So the question is, how does Ross bridge the gap between BBAs and MBAs? Question's not done. Isn't it possible that some companies may regard the younger, more malleable BBAs more favorably than the older, less malleable MBAs? I won't ask for you to acknowledge who wrote the question. Kiva, what do you think about that? What's been your experience working with the MBAs, and especially now that you're a team lead in a particular function? How do you manage those dynamics?
So I guess first I'll speak to last semester when we didn't actually have leads last semester. So there was 3 MBAs on my team and myself and one other BBA. One of the things that really set the tone for me in the beginning were that we decided to sort of do rotating roles. So we didn't just have one team lead, one scribe, one person sending emails. We decided to rotate everything. So at some point, everyone could have a turn to do that job. And that was one of the MBAs recommended doing that, and that's something in my group projects that I'd never even considered before. It was kind of like, one person just always be the note taker. But an MBA suggesting that to me really showed that they wanted to give the BBAs an opportunity to have a leadership role, to voice their opinions, to be heard. And so that really set the tone for LBLE for me to realize that, okay, like there's an age difference. I've never actually had a real job besides internships, but I can make a difference here and an impact, and I can be heard. So that really set the tone. And I think, so this semester, I'm in charge of 2 other MBAs and then 2 other BBAs. And I think that they respect the fact that this is my second semester and that I'm coming into this knowing a lot more about Shinola. And I don't think there's ever been a moment where, you know, there's an MBA, BBA conflict or divide. I think we know that we bring different things to the table. And so I think that's really special. And as I said, the dynamics have been my favorite part. And actually our Shinola MBA lead is also going to work at Google with me, and we actually carpooled together now. So like it's really developed some good friendships.
That's great. No, thank you for that. So the last part of this question was how can we use an experience like this to really elevate the brand of the school and the programs in it, BBA and MBA, and it's specifically about rankings. And you know, the rankings of our BBA program, depending on what ranking you look at, 3rd, 4th, 5th, something like that, really, really high ranked. And MBAs, like I said before, it depends on whether it's, depends on what ranking. It's usually between sort of 5 and 12, depending on sort of the ranking you're looking at. And what's interesting is if you look at the rankings of this school over history, and this is true for many schools, but in particular us. So, for example, we were ranked 2nd in the mid-90s. And that's an important date because that's when MAP was first launched. And so when I became dean, I went back to all the rankings and looked at the history of it. And in '96, when we were ranked 2nd, the quote about the business school at the time was, it wasn't the Ross School at the time, but the Michigan Business School is the most innovative business school in the country. That was the quote that really elevated the school to sort of that stature. And what we're seeing is the exact same language being used to describe us now. So for example, my prospective MBA students will appreciate this. So Poets and Quants is a website that you pay a lot of attention to. And Poets and Quants for the last 2 years has recognized Ross as one of the hot schools to watch in terms of what's happening in business education and really sort of establishing innovation and the future of business education. And the group at Poets and Quants, a lot of what they talk about are the innovations like the living businesses that we're creating. And so if you think about the reputation, the rankings, and all of that about a school, we're a human capital organization. It's all about people. And so we have to attract the best people. We have to develop them in really high-impact, transformative ways. And we have to engage with companies so that we're opening up career opportunities that are second to none. No one thing is going to do all of that, but this is an important piece of a larger puzzle that is establishing us as one of the most innovative business schools in the world. And as a result of that, last year on the admissions side for both undergraduate and MBA, we set every admissions record possible. Whether it was academic performance and quality, whether it was diversity, 43% women, all-time high on vets, all-time highs on underrepresented minorities, all-time high in number of countries represented in the program, similar stats for the BBA, and only round 1 is in, but if my analytics are correct, we're going to do it again. And so I'm super excited about what innovations like this are doing not only for the student experience and how that's opening up opportunities, but it's attracting talent, faculty and students, to the organization where we're going to, over time, build and build. So that gets me really excited.
It's also attracting alumni back. I mean, I can say it. You said I'm on the alumni board of advisors, and I've been on it now for quite a while, and I've watched that transformation, and you see a different level of engagement amongst that group than you've seen in the past, and a lot of that is due to Scott proactively engaging that group, but a lot of it is due to what's happening. And I can only say I'm disappointed. I thought that 2nd ranking in 1996 was because that was my graduate year.
That's why I looked at you.
Yeah.
Yep. So a couple of good questions that just got handed to me. So one is, how do you maintain continuity across semesters? So part of it is having students do it multiple times. The harder part is continuity across the calendar year, because academic year is not the same as the calendar year. And so Mike's team has done a great job of creating a structure where we're using both the courses that are happening during the fall, winter, and spring into internships. So you had an intern at Shinola last summer as we were getting this off the ground. And so the idea is we're essentially creating a 12-month ongoing business that provides that continuity.
And by the way, I'd add, I'm sorry, Mike, I'd add that the intern that we had last summer is now part-time employee and has an offer for full-time after she graduates. She's one of Kiva's classmates, and she comes down and works with us in the audio group regularly during the week. She's down there Thursdays and Fridays now because of her class schedule.
Yeah. And imagine an internship. So what are you doing for your internship? Well, I'm running Shinola's audio business. Excuse me? No, that's my internship. Yeah, I did it during the year, and I'm going to do that over the summer.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the question here actually ties to the internship. Can we expand further on the difference between these living businesses and the internships that every single one of our students has primarily during the summer? Mike, do you want to speak to that a little bit from a faculty perspective?
Yeah, I would just say, just building on what I just said, it's these summer interns that are working on these projects. It's a line of business that they've either been involved with or will be involved with when they come back in the fall. So there's just something about that ownership, and this is something that Kiva's over there wants to jump in and say, yes, it is. There's something about owning what you're doing. It's not Tom used the term babysitting earlier. It's not some, hey, organize these files for the summer. It's, no, we've got some big challenges that we're wrapping up right as the spring group was heading off on their either graduating or off on their summer break. So we've got some big stuff for you to work on here, intern. Solve this for the fall.
Yeah.
Right? I also think, our students do amazing internships, and I've been very fortunate at Ross to intern at Google and Ernst & Young, but the reality was I was not sitting at a table with the CEO of Ernst & Young. I was working with people who were a year older than me in a satellite office, essentially. So the fact that the accessibility is totally different than just a regular internship. So I think that there's a huge difference there. Actually getting to see how strategic corporate decisions are made, that's usually something 21-year-old interns don't have the ability to.
Well, and also your internship usually ends at the end of the summer, right? You go back, hopefully you get an offer, but you're going back to school. In this case, the intern stays connected to the business. And he or she may be coming back. If not coming back, they're advising the student group that is there. So they're connected back to the business, and we're staying in touch with them.
Yeah. Another big element that I think is different, at least from a school level perspective, is that Mike is not the only faculty involved. Yeah. So he's just the sort of Uber organizer that's making sure all the pieces are in place as the lead faculty. But say on Shinola's marketing team, you've got marketing faculty who are embedded with that function, who are teaching marketing strategy and implementation as they're doing it in Shinola. On supply chain and operations, you've got a supply chain operations faculty who's actually teaching the concepts on how you do that as you actually build it in the audio business and build that supply chain. So we are completely, I want no space between the curriculum and the learning and the doing. This is all about learning business by doing business and actually having the curriculum completely integrated with this real world experience, which you're not going to get in any internship. And so this is really setting our students up for success in that as well. So just two more questions and then we'll wrap up. So one of is how many students so far can actually be part of this and those sorts of things. And so we can talk about 7 businesses and how many students are involved in that sort of thing. But conceptually, think of it as a dozen businesses. Mike said 12, 15. He's captured the contagious aspirations. So think of it this way. If you had 12 businesses, 4 functions per business, and a team in each of those functions. So you got 5 people per function. You got, let's say, 4 functions in a business, roughly speaking. So that's 20 people per business times 12. Right? So we're looking at a couple hundred, 200-300 students that once we scale this would actually be embedded in these businesses at any point in time. Okay, so that's one way to think about that. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those offline. And then the easiest question of the night, but a really important one, is will all these experiences, including MAP, for the you can read it.
Will the MAPs go international at the BBA level? Looks like I need to do another 4 years.
Yeah. You can always come back for graduate school. So the answer is yes, in various forms. We will set a record this year for the number of undergraduates studying abroad in the history of the school. And so those are global study courses and things of that sort. And we've got a lot of alumni support. I see Tom Jones in the audience here that's helped us actually build the capability to do that. So the global study courses, we're setting records there in the number of students that are participating, the MAP experiences that Chris Ternacki and others from the MAP office are helping us build. And so the answer to that is absolutely yes. So for all of those that are joining us online, thank you for joining us. Super excited that you're here. And obviously all of you that are here in person, thank you. The people make this place, and this place, the University of Michigan, the Ross School of Business, is a really special place. And it's because our people, our culture is so special. And hopefully you get a feel from that, just getting to have this sort of conversation with wonderfully talented students like Kiva, alumni like Tom, and faculty and members of our team like Mike. This is a special place, and the people make that place. And so thank you for engaging and being part of this really special community. And as always, go blue.
Thank you. Thank you.